In this video, we're going to cover a few things that have already been covered in other places, but we're going to do so in a more comprehensive way. We've gone through all of the asset types in other videos, but we're now going to walk through basic scene creation and explain how to use the Search and Browse tool. First, we're going to start by searching for a terrain. We're going to open the Outdoor Components window and browse for terrains. Terrains are typically named with the terrain size indicated in the terrain name. So for example, grassy terrain 500 by 500 is a 500 meter by 500 meter terrain. When you've selected an asset from the browser, you'll get details for that asset in the upper left. In this window, you can see the full description of the asset, who created, as well as the file size. Unlike most assets, you won't see the polygon count for the terrain because the polygon count for terrains is variable depending on where you're standing or where you're looking. Terrains are also a unique asset type in that, unlike most assets, you can't just place it somewhere using the placer. With terrains, you'll simply press Place Here when ready. Once selected, the terrain will not be selectable by mouse click like other assets, as that could cause issues when a creator accidentally selects a terrain or moves it. To select a terrain in the scene, please open the Outdoor Components window, select the Terrains tab, and then select the terrain in the drop-down. This will then select it and populate the bottom toolbar, at which point you can modify the item as you normally would. Additionally, all players have access to their own quality settings where they can change the terrain draw distances, such as pixel draw distance, base map distance, grass draw distance, and tree draw distance in order to optimize for their own individual performance. Now that the terrain is loaded, we're going to quickly run through some other item types. Please note that all applicable assets in the platform do have level of detail or LODs assigned to them, so you can create without worrying about having scenes that won't work well on older computers. Let's start with some buildings. We have more buildings than terrains, so you'll see there are actually multiple pages of options in order to comb through. We'll do a search for a cabin. We're going to select the Wasteland Cabin. When you've clicked the item in the browser window, it'll pop up the details, including the description, etc., but here you'll also see the polygon count. There are some indicators to tell you if the file size is big or if the polygon count is high or low. In this case, the polygon count is small. We're going to go ahead and hit place one and put it into the scene. Once it's placed into the scene, you can rotate it and position it as you normally would, and you've learned in other videos. We're now going to put in some trees and utilize the randomization feature to provide some variance in our scene. I like to be flying when I do this because it's easy to see where you're placing the trees. Now that we've done that, we're going to throw in some rocks. We're also going to utilize the randomization feature to provide more variance. However, we're going to test a new function, which is offsetting the position. In order to offset the position, rocks will typically load in sometimes partially above the ground. By setting the Y position to something like -1, it ensures that the rock is actually fully embedded into the ground. Finally, we'll add a couple of props. This concludes basic asset placement for the platform.